It's 1 minute after 7, so we're going to get going. Welcome to making your first 100K in selling commercial solar. I'm Tim Montague. Tonight is going to be a whirlwind, and I really appreciate you being here. I do this for you, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I do this. But I am Tim Montague, NABCEP PV Technical Sales Certified Solar Professional and NABCEP trainer, and I look forward to sharing some of my knowledge and, more importantly, building this community. You know, this is how it breaks down. You can make $100,000 in commissions selling commercial solar by selling $5 million in projects and earning 2% commission on those projects. That's about 3 megawatts of solar projects. And that breaks down to 12 mid-sized 250 kW solar projects. 250 kW would be a mid-sized commercial solar project. They vary, of course, from 20 kW to several megawatts. And you see on the right here on this slide that, you know, there's a lot going on in the solar industry. This is a SEIA fact sheet. SEIA is the Solar Energy Industries Association. That's our national association. And in 2021, the market was $33 billion. It's a very big, fast-growing market. Of course, it includes residential, commercial, small utility, and utility scale. Full spectrum. My specialty is commercial, industrial, and community solar or small utility solar. I develop 1 to 20 megawatt projects, and I'll be telling you a little more about my work. But that's really my goal, is to help you make the transition. So if you're an energy professional, if you're a residential solar professional, if you're a recent grad or a career changer wanting to get into commercial solar, this webinar and my online courses and trainings and coaching will help you do that. First, it would be great for you all to just share a little bit about yourself in the chat. There's a black bar at the bottom in the Zoom interface. Go to the chat. You can also do it in the Q&A, but chat is just a central place. Share your name, where you live and work, where you are in your solar journey. So, you know, here's my blurb. I'm Tim Montague. I live in Champaign, Illinois. I'm developing 1 to 20 megawatt solar PPA projects across the Midwest. This includes large C&I and community solar. And if you would just go to the chat and do that now, that would be very helpful for all of us to know who's here. Ultimately, I am building a community. I call it a tribe of solar professionals, the next generation of solar professionals. And it has nothing to do with age. I got into solar in 2016 when I was in my early 50s. And I have a lifelong passion for sustainability. And it just happens that I held off on getting into solar, which is ironic because I was doing backyard solar thermal as a young boy when I was 12 years old in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I grew up. So look forward to learning more about you in the chat or the Q&A. And I will be saving questions I'll be saving questions from the audience until the end tonight, but you can put those in the Q&A as well. And if you're just joining, please put your name, your location, and where you are in your solar journey in the chat. And that way I have some context for who you all are. You know, here's the nuts and bolts of our agenda tonight. We're going to talk about generating and qualifying commercial solar leads, understanding what industrial customers really want and how you can give that to them in a meaningful way. How to size and design projects, that's a fundamental, but also knowing what kinds of projects make financial sense. And then understanding state and federal incentives. This is vital. It is fairly deep water. I'll explain why. And then generating quotes and using LOIs, letters of intent, is a fantastic tool for any commercial solar salesperson. So that's our technical agenda. But I think this is why you're really here. And I would, love to hear your comments in the chat. What is it that inspired you to respond to sign up for this webinar tonight? I think being successful at commercial solar gives you financial freedom. It gives you personal and professional freedom in a way that most other professionals just don't have. It has given me personally tremendous status and power in ways that I didn't have, even though I was a successful B2B sales professional my whole career, starting when I was in my mid-20s. I went to a whole new level when I started selling large C&I solar, because the dollar figure of the sales, a large solar project is $5 to $10 million in C&I and small utility. And so as a salesperson, there just aren't that many things in the world, in the built environment, that have that value and that potential. So, but then of course there's these very, very important things like fulfilling your mission. I am a mission-driven entrepreneur. And if you are not on a mission in your life and in your career, I would challenge you and urge you to figure that out pronto, because it's going to make your life so much more fulfilling. And you know what you're doing when you wake up in the morning, what you are about, and where you are going. My mission is to help other professionals and my customers go further faster. On the decarbonization front, right, solar is a way to decarbonize the grid and help companies meet their ESG goals. And we can all feel good about that. The climate crisis is very real and prescient. And so we are creating a healthier and safer future for humanity by greening the grid. And we're also being part of something much bigger than ourselves. And that is just something that humans find very gratifying. I find it very gratifying personally. And so it's these are really fundamental things. And stick around, because I have a bonus offer for you tonight worth $956. So congrats for showing up to this free webinar, because this is real value. Why did I create this webinar? And why am I so passionate for coaching, training, and consulting? When I got into solar full time in 2016, it was serendipitous for one thing. And I'm gonna run through a quick resume on the next slide, but my goal with this webinar and with my online trainings and my coaching and consulting is to help you go further faster on your journey. When I got into solar in 2016, I didn't have somebody. I didn't have a group of colleagues who had been there, done that, and had a knowledge base. Yes, I had a boss, and eventually at Continental Energy Solutions and EPC I worked for in Chicago, in Brian Haug, the president of that company. He was a mentor of mine. And my goal is to create a tribe, which is going to give you a network of professionals, people like yourselves, who are a collective knowledge base of information, processes, products, and connections. And as the saying goes, it's not what you know, but who you know. So that network that you're part of by being in this webinar is invaluable. And then, of course, I have developed a method for identifying, qualifying, and closing commercial solar projects, which I am now imparting on you. A little more about me. My motto is growth for the greater good, and I truly am passionate for creating a better future for humanity. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was born in the Midwest in Indiana, and I live in the Midwest. I keep coming back here. There's something very humble and grounded about people here in the Midwest. I've lived all over the world, though, and all over the U.S. I've lived in California, New Jersey, and I love traveling. College is not necessary to be good at commercial solar sales. It's certainly not a bad foundation, but on-the-job training and learning like this is really the way to speed your evolution. And, this is about technology, people, and sustainability. Solar is the nexus of those things. Solar is technology that converts sunlight to electricity. And so it is technology sales. It's not rocket science, though. It is a mainstream technology. Now it's been maturing for 70 years. We've actually been in the energy transition for over 50 years. And between now and 2050, we're just going vertical on that S-curve. We're going to reach 50% grid power with solar alone by 2050 globally. I got into solar serendipitously. I thought I'd work in wind before I worked in solar because I saw wind come in to Illinois in 08, 09 when we first got our first renewable portfolio standard. But this guy, Paul, from Canada, cold called me on a weekend and alerted me that we'd reached grid parity, meaning that solar was cost competitive with other energy generating technologies. And that was a light bulb moment for me. And I was fishing for my next opportunity. And I dove in with both feet. And it turned out we had really good legislation. So you have to be careful about geography in solar. Solar doesn't work everywhere. Solar is very dependent on legislation. So you have to know your state and your region and your utilities very well. So that is part of your job as a solar professional, is to become knowledgeable on your region. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts. I am thrilled to see so many people here tonight, and look forward to taking some of your questions at the end. There's a shout out to Sanjay. Good talking to you a couple weeks ago, Sanjay. Look forward to continuing that dialogue. And so here's part one here, generating and qualifying leads. So there's no single formula for generating leads in commercial solar. There's what works, okay? And what works for me may not work for you. So here is my recipe, and you're welcome to copy this recipe, and I'm going to give you some nuances on how this recipe works, but truly it's what works for you that matters. First and foremost, you have to open up your network. Your warm network is your best friend. Business people, business owners, family members, friends and colleagues, executives in the company you work for. These are all great contacts. It's through a few degrees of separation that you are connected to really great opportunities. And one of the most important network nodes, I call individuals nodes. You can think of me, Tim Montague, as somebody who has a lot of connections in the world. I have over 20,000 connections on LinkedIn. I don't know all those people, but I know several thousand people and am on a first name basis with several hundred in the clean energy industry, including manufacturers and solar professionals and wind and battery storage and finance and project development, so many different types of people. But sustainability managers have been my best friend in generating leads. There's a local gentleman in my community named Scott Tess, who is the sustainability manager for the city of Urbana. And it's his job to really know what's going on in the built environment locally. And he's connected to all the local manufacturers. And so when they're considering doing a project, they call Scott and they say, hey, we're thinking about this and that. And so who does Scott call? Well, he calls Tim, because he knows that Tim is a qualified solar professional and can help his customers, these local manufacturers. And it's not rocket science. So connect with sustainability professionals in your region. Virtual door knocking is very powerful. There is a feature within LinkedIn. All of you should have a LinkedIn profile if you don't already. I was an early adopter. I got into LinkedIn in 2003. But there's an added tool there called Sales Navigator. So when you go into LinkedIn, you have to look in the upper right-hand corner, I think. And it's like a parallel universe. But if you get a premium subscription to Sales Navigator, and it's not that expensive, it's like $100 a month. This gives you access to accounts, for example. You can say, okay, I want to look at Nestle Corporation, and it will give you a list of who are decision makers at Nestle. And then with an add-on tool like Apollo.io, for example, you can get email and telephone contact information on these individuals. So that allows you to do direct outreach, or what I call virtual door knocking. And this is a very powerful tool for reaching out to decision makers at commercial industrial facilities. Associations are very important. I've mentioned SEIA already. That is our National Trade Association for Commercial Solar. And your state organization, I call out a few here: Illinois, ISEA, Minnesota, MNSEA, Mid-Atlantic, Solar and Storage Association, CALSA, the California Solar Association is now the California Solar and Storage Association. Those state organizations are doing vital things like laying the groundwork for good legislation. They're lobbying. You can participate in lobbying yourself, supporting that organization. Of course, you can do volunteer work. They're organizing, solar days where residents and commercial facility owners open up their facilities and show off their solar projects. They hold networking events. That's how I created an opportunity for myself at Continental Energy Solutions, a large EPC in Chicago. That was my first full-time business development job in the solar industry. I had been doing residential solar prior to that on I call it a freelance basis. I was working for a national solar organization and not having a lot of luck. And I was very interested, because of my background in B2B sales, in doing bigger projects and working with commercial customers. So I just naturally gravitated, and then I met Brian through the association. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of participating and joining and attending events of your local association. If you have a favorite method, please put that in the Q&A. Apparently the chat is not working. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know how to change that on the fly, so I apologize. But you can put in the Q&A, and I'm going to keep trucking here. So qualifying leads is vital. You want to be able to qualify them quickly and efficiently. And the roof condition is something that you want to drill down on ASAP. There is a 10-year rule of thumb in commercial solar that you do not want to try to solarize a roof that's more than 10 years old, because the life of the roof will end before the solar facility comes to the end of life. And then you'll have to re-roof or augment the roof, and that means tearing off the solar, and that's expensive. there's considerations like how well prepared to do a solar project is the customer. If they're doing a cash deal or a CapEx deal, as we call it, are they prepared for that? Do they have the manpower? Do they have the wherewithal? Who are the stakeholders and decision makers? It's great to work with a tightly held company. That is what I gravitate to. But all types of companies are doing solar projects. You see, in the news, the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons of the world are some of the early adopters. They have very ambitious decarbonization goals. They're doing this with large-scale solar and wind PPAs. But if you can find a manufacturer, manufacturers are great because they have big roofs and they have big energy loads. It's not that malls or office buildings or even multifamily buildings can't be solarized. All of those buildings can be solarized. It's just there are, levels of quality of rooftop, and you want big open flat roof with a load, and you want it to be owner occupied. That's where ownership comes in. 90% of commercial real estate is third party owned, meaning a third party owns the real estate and they lease it to a tenant. That's not an ideal solar customer because the solar is considered a facility upgrade. So it's something that the facility owner is going to take care of, but the tenant is likely paying the power bill, and the solar is going to reduce the power bill. And so there's a disconnect there. Now, there are companies that specialize in this. One of them is called Catalyze, based in Boston. They're doing solar batteries and EV chargers on commercial properties. Basically, the value proposition is we're going to increase the value of your real estate. You're going to get better tenants, and you're going to attract fleets of, say Amazon trucks. Amazon's in the process of electrifying their fleet. So there is a market for third-party ownership. It's a unique market, and certainly for commercial professionals starting out, I would not recommend targeting that niche. I would go for owner-occupied. That is my mantra. You want some level of sophistication in a customer who is motivated to do a solar project. Even if you're doing third-party owned solar, a power purchase agreement where there's no out-of-pocket for the commercial customer, they are going to have to put some time and effort into that process. And then, of course, there's ROI, and I'll talk a little more about that later in the webinar. I do have a whole 1-hour course on HeatSpring. It's free. So if you just Google my name and HeatSpring, you'll find that. And I go through qualifying commercial leads and projects. What does your customer want? I have a great little interview on YouTube with this gentleman, Colin Murphy, who is one of my favorite customers, very charismatic CEO of a fourth-generation family business called Simmons Knife. Simmons Knife and Saw. They make saw blades for furniture, the furniture industry, and the food industry. But their team was very aligned. The executive team, they knew what they wanted. They were in the process of preparing to re-roof their building. They knew that they needed to re-roof. When I first walked this roof, it was a river rock roof, and now it's a white TPO roof that you see there in the upper right-hand corner. It's a 5-degree tilt solar project. That's why the solar panels look so dense there. There's little row spacing. In flat roof solar, we usually do 10-degree tilt, ballasted. This was fully attached because the owner wanted to take the ITC on the re-roofing costs. So that is something that you can do. That is a financial angle to play if the tax professionals, the tax advisors of the company think it's a go. So that is a decision that they have to make, and that's something that they did here at Simmons Knife and Saw. And you can find this on YouTube. Just Google Simmons Knife and Saw Go Solar, and you'll find that interview with Colin Murphy. The The reason we did a 5-degree tilt project, though, is because I was listening to the customer. They very much wanted to offset as much of their load as possible, and they needed about 600 kW, if I recall, to truly offset 100% of their load. And so they were what's called roof constrained. And so by packing in the solar and getting more solar panels on that roof with a 5-degree tilt system, the lower the tilt, the closer you can put the rows together. So 10-degree tilt has 1.5-foot row spacing. 5-degree has like 9-inch row spacing here in the Midwest. And we did fully attached for the ITC purposes, but and that way we were able to offset about 70% of their load. I was up against a competitor. You will very likely be dealing with one or two or more competitors when you're bidding these projects. And but I was able to build rapport and listen to what the customer wanted. And I worked hard to give it to them. It wasn't easy. I was working for a solar construction company. I'm the developer, and I got pushback on the 5-degree tilt. And 5-degree tilt is more challenging to construct. But I knew that if we could do this, it would make a difference to the customer. And ultimately, we were able to win the project. And it's a beautiful, beautiful project. There are different motivations for different customers. And as you all know, there was a grid outage in Texas in 2021 that came very close to being a really major disaster. It was a disaster, but not a major disaster. There were around 300 plus lives lost in this grid outage. So this made people very aware, though, in ERCOT, in the Texas area, about resiliency or lack thereof. And so resiliency is something that everybody wants, but not everyone can afford. It involves solar and storage or solar and storage and a generator. Many industrial facilities already have backup power with a diesel or natural gas generator. And so you can do this with solar and batteries also. I'm going to talk a little more about batteries in this webinar, but so there's a value stack that solar or solar and storage provides. You're lowering the energy bill, creating savings. You're lowering their carbon footprint. You're creating environmental goods. These are including job creation, environmental stewardship, and improving human health. 6 million plus people a year die from air pollution from fossil fuel burning, a lot of which is used for power generation. So greening the grid is really good for humans. A little more about storage. Storage can be a complete game changer in commercial solar. And you can attack a variety of utility charges. Out west and out east, we attack demand charges with batteries. In the Midwest, we attack capacity charges. These are cousins of one another. But literally, the ROI can be 3x when it pencils nicely with the solar and storage versus solar alone. We now have very good incentives at the federal level for batteries. You can do standalone batteries also. So all solar professionals need to be fluent in storage and find good partners. These are software as a service companies. These are manufacturers. Storage is fairly deep water, but it's water worth swimming in my opinion. And I love doing solar and storage. Solar alone, you can reduce a power bill by 50 to 75%. You're never going to offset 100% of a power bill with a solar array, right? Because solar is intermittent. It's there when the sun is shining. Facilities are operating when the sun is not shining. And so you're grid connected, you're going to have charges. With a battery, of course, you can attack the head of the duct. Here's the duct curve in the lower right of this slide, right? When the sun goes down and demand goes up on the grid, the battery then becomes a resource. So you charge the battery with solar energy in the middle of the day. That's the belly of the duct here, the green area. and then discharge the battery in the evening or in the event of an outage, or if you're trying to attack demand charges or capacity charges. Capacity charges are set on, the 3 most intense days of a facility's usage. And so if you can knock those 3 2-hour periods down with a battery, you can save a customer tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And there are special incentives in some markets, so you have to know your market. In Illinois, we have a $250 per kWh incentive. So the battery is cash positive in 2 years. In Massachusetts, if you're doing a 500 kW solar project or larger, you have to pair it with a battery, period. New York has incentives. California has incentives. So you've got to know your market. And, this is real. This is a real thing. Customers around the country are electrifying their fleets. This is a story in Canary Media, which is a great news outlet for clean energy news. This was just a story I found from 2021 about Martha's Vineyard electrifying their bus fleet and installing a huge solar carport. And there are very good incentives for electrification of transportation at the federal and in some cases state level. Presenting to decision makers, obviously you have to sell something. You're going to put together a proposal on your solar project and then sit down with your customer and do this virtually or face-to-face. Do it face-to-face if you can, but in the age of COVID, we all got used to doing Zoom meetings, and that's perfectly acceptable as well. If you're doing a Zoom meeting, record it, because then you can share the presentation with other stakeholders who were not necessarily present at the original meeting. So I love recording my meetings, but you want to pursue something called consultative selling. If you don't know what this is, just Google it. You'll find lots of resources on the internet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. You want to have a SOQ, a statement of qualifications. This is a standard marketing material in construction and solar. And I'm going to give an example of that. And then the LOI, the letter of intent, is an invaluable tool for closing deals. In general, you want to be very respectful of time, keep it short and sweet, get your customer to do 80% of the talking. That's my 80-20 rule. This is a standard rule in sales. You're trying to learn as much as you can about the customer while you're presenting the opportunity and figuring out what their priorities and concerns are. You have to leave time for Q&A, of course. Set proper expectations. Do not overpromise. My mantra is underpromise, overdeliver. And you want to have several next steps, whether that's an LOI, a contract, or other. You have to be flexible, but determined. I'm not suggesting that commercial solar sales is easy. You have to be very focused, passionate, dedicated, knowledgeable. You have to do a lot of education because customers don't necessarily understand solar. It seems like magic. Black panels you put in the sun that make electricity. It seems too good to be true, but it's real. But customers do not understand it. They have a lot of misinformation about the risks and the benefits. Some people think it's a scam. Some people think solar is going to poison the ground. There's just a crazy misinformation on the internet about solar. It's very mature technology. That is a very important mantra. It was invented in 1954 in New Jersey at Bell Labs. It's an American technology. It goes back to Einstein. He was one of the people who explained the photoelectric effect, the physics of it, but it's American technology. Photovoltaics are not rocket science. They've been around for 70 years. NASA uses them to power the ISS, right? The International Space Station. Is that real? Yeah, it's real. So solar is real and it works. Be an advisor, not a widget salesperson, right? You're building trust and rapport. People do business with people they like and trust, and that is your goal constantly, is to build, like, and trust. And set goalposts. Have a best possible outcome in mind and a least acceptable outcome. This is kind of the soup to nuts cycle of a solar project. You're qualifying the lead, doing a site assessment. I go into great detail on this in my online courses. You're gathering energy and facility data, doing a site visit, initial design and sizing, vetting the design with the customer. Can they do a carport? Do they want to do a carport? Do they have enough roof? Do they have ground? These considerations, you have to figure these things out. And, carports are lovely, like the one you see here, but they're more expensive, sometimes twice as expensive as traditional rooftop solar. So then the economics are quite different. You're going to price the project, of course, generate a pro forma cash flow, which tells you the ROI. What is the internal rate of return? What's the payback period? What is the LCOE, the cost of energy? And then generating a proposal. And then you may have to revise that proposal. You will often do several iterations. So consider the sales cycle an iterative process. In residential solar, it's a relatively small sale. It's like buying a car. You've got one or two decision makers. In commercial solar, it's easily $100,000 up to several $1 million. There's multiple stakeholders, multiple decision makers. It's just a more complicated scenario all around. And obviously the technology is different solar panels, much bigger solar panels, different inverters. It's apples and oranges. Now, plenty of residential installers do grow into commercial solar, and that's one of my specialties, is helping those installers grow into commercial solar. So if you're a resi installer, a business owner, or entrepreneur, reach out to me. These are just some real common sense things. I'm gonna move along. You'll be getting a copy of these slides if you registered for the event. So the statement of qualifications, this is my favorite marketing material, bar none. And this is a piece I developed for Continental. You see we break it down, our portfolio by category: retail, manufacturing, community solar, education, institutional, government, healthcare, office. And then we just give some vignettes, some thumbnails, giving people a sense of these are the types of projects that we've done. This is a great door opener also, right? When you're talking to a prospect, trying to let them know who you are, if you have an SOQ, it gives you credibility, instant credibility. And of course, your SOQ is going to evolve over time. It's a work in progress, and you need to see it as a living, breathing document. Again, consultative selling. Here are some of the nuts and bolts of that. You are an advisor. You have to ask open-ended questions. Avoid yes or no questions. Build rapport. Focus on the customer's needs. Sympathize with the customer. Get your customer to talk 80% of the time. This is a very, very important rule. If you can do this, you will be much more successful at closing deals. Listen more, talk less. And this is how you discover what motivates and excites your customer. And you need to know this. And you also need to know what their plans are for the facility and for the ground around the facility and any other parts of the facility like the parking lot. I think that Richardson has some great content. I took a 3-day training on consultative selling back in the 90s, and it's one of the best trainings I ever did. So invest in becoming fluent in consultative selling. I got to be careful with the time here. So I'm going to keep moving. All right. How to size and design projects that make good financial sense. We're always trying to offset 100% of the load, but many times we can't. The building here on your right is a good example. This was a new construction courthouse in Will County in the Chicago suburbs. And you see, you can put solar on a high-rise building. You're going to use more attachments because the wind load is higher. And obviously that roof was not very well designed for solar. It's very crowded with vents and RTUs, rooftop units. But put a small solar array, that might offset 20% of the facility's load, if that. This was not a project that we developed ourselves. We were just the construction partner on this. But that's your goal, offset 100% of the electric load. I'd say 50% of the time you can do that. And that's great. But it doesn't change the fundamental economics of the percent offset. It's more about the cost of energy and the incentives. So then you're doing an initial design. Is it roof or ground? If the roof is too old, then you're going to ground. Is there ground? Are you doing carport? That changes the economics. All those considerations. You have to get energy data. You need a full bill, right? Hopefully a couple months, but one month is generally plenty. You need a tool like Energy Toolbase. That is my preferred tool. It's a software as a service platform for analyzing and developing a proposal and cash flows. So you can do solar with a fancy spreadsheet. You can do cash flows with a fancy spreadsheet, but I prefer Energy Toolbase. But you got to get the tabular data and the PDF data, which tells you what the cost of energy is and allows you to determine what you can do, what you can offset with a solar facility, solar array. And this is, how you then do some basic math. You do a design in helioscope, right? In the background here in this image, you see an array. That is the Minrelac solar project. And we're looking at a 406 kW DC solar array. We determined that the kWh per kWp, this is something called insulation. This is a fundamental that is very site-specific. It depends on the latitude of the project. In Arizona, it might be 1,600 for fixed tilt. In Illinois, for fixed tilt, we're around 1,300. If we go to tracker, single axis tracker, then we're getting maybe 1,500 kWh per kWp. But that is your basic calculation right here. You've got your 12 months of kWh, so your tabular data, you're adding up 12 months of consumption data. This facility used just over 500,000 kWh divided by the insulation factor, and that tells you the kWdc that you need to offset 100%. And then if you're only doing, say, 300 kW because you're constrained in some way, space constrained, then that gives you your calculation on the offset. I go into this in great detail in my 1 hour free course. This is a nice bar chart of the load in blue bars versus what the array produces, right? If you've done solar proposals in Aurora or Helioscope, you've seen these, or Energy Toolbase. This is an Energy Toolbase chart. But you see how you're spinning the meter backwards in the summer, and this is why net metering is so important. If you can get full retail credit for those electrons, this is tremendously valuable, right? So solar electrons are of full retail value of what the customer's paying. And there's various flavors of net metering. There's wholesale. California just changed the rules, and net metering is very devalued in California now. The key to solar in California is storage. It's all about batteries. Some design tools you need to be familiar with. Helioscope is my number one favorite, but Aurora is very good. They're owned by the same company. Enact Systems is a good tool. I've not used it. Solargraph, another good tool. I've not used it. PV Watts I've used. That's a free tool by NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. SAM, a highly technical tool, also by NREL. And so there's many tools, but I prefer tools that are kind of mainstream, very established, and reasonable, and that's Helioscope and Aurora. The cost of solar, of course, impacts the ROI. You see a nice photo of some double-axis trackers here, and if you know anything about solar, you can see that the one tracker here on the far right is pointing the wrong direction. It's not tracking, and so I immediately knew when I drove into this parking lot, this is a Method Soap Factory on the south side of Chicago, that their tracker was broken. And the receptionist proceeded to chew my ear off about what a headache the trackers had been. That's why you don't see a lot of double-axis trackers. They are a more complicated mechanical device. They're out there. There's a product called the Mega, I think, that I saw at RE Plus this fall. They're out there. And, of course, if you're space constrained, you get a lot of kWh per kWp. You might get 3,000. You might get double what you get with fixed tilt. 2,000 to 3,000. They get good generation. I've never actually modeled a double-axis tracker. But anyway, the cost of solar was very high in the 70s, and it has come down a lot. And just in the last 10 years, it's come down about 70%. So it continues to drop, but it is asymptoted. The cost of solar kind of is doing this. It's getting gradually cheaper now. Of course, as project size increases, the cost of solar comes down. You know, in residential solar, you're looking at $3 to $5 a watt. Small commercial, $2 to $3. Medium commercial, $1.50 to $2 a watt. And then large commercial, $1 to $1.50. Payback period is something that everyone understands. It's just very straightforward. And unfortunately, decision makers often have unrealistic expectations about payback period. We generally, in good markets that have good incentives, we can get to 3 to 5 years, 4 to 5 years. Generally not 3 years. But solar and storage, you can get a 3-year payback. So that's why you need to become versed in storage. And here are the factors: the cost of power, the net metering. What are the net metering rules? Retail versus wholesale versus not at all. Some places don't have net metering. Net metering is a foundation to a good solar market, as is an RPS. I'm going to keep moving here. I want to get to my bonus offer. So incentives, we have the ITC, 30% through 2033. That's the IRA legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is so important. We now have direct pay ITC for nonprofits. So municipalities and nonprofits can get the benefits of the ITC, accelerated depreciation, things like energy communities. These are coal mining communities or oil communities that have now special incentives. Domestic content of the products that you use in the solar facility, you get an adder for that. And then REAP grants, Rural Energy for America, they can cover up to 50% of the project value. So those are worth knowing about if you're working in rural communities. So everywhere outside of the major metros is good REAP grant territory. This is a Desire database. Check it out, dsireusa.org. They just break down the legislation by state. So this is a great tool if you're starting to work in multiple states. Check out Desire. And, you know, every state has different incentives and different costs of energy. And so, you know, in LA, you have a 6 to 8 year payback period, Whereas in Texas, in Harris County, you have a 10 to 15 year payback period. Cheaper power, less incentives. And, cheap power is a major barrier to entry for solar. That's why solar didn't come to the Midwest as quickly as it did to the West Coast and the East Coast. Quotes and LOIs, these are so important. You want to be able to generate a proposal within a week, if you can, of getting energy data. And so you need some tools at your disposal to put together the cost of a project once you have a helioscope design. And then you want to use a letter of intent for anything sizable. I'd say 100,000 plus project. A letter of intent is a great way. And what this does is it just gets the customer on the hook. And you're saying, look, let us do some initial design and engineering, apply for the interconnection agreement, which is vital. You have to get an interconnection agreement. That's permission from the utility to connect a solar facility to their grid. They own the grid. And then filing for incentives. In the case of Illinois, we have RECs. That's a common incentive around the country, but it depends on the jurisdiction. And so an LOI is just a way to let's do a $20,000 initial project to get this project off the ground. You don't have to spend the full $150 to $500 to $1 million, whatever the project is. And I give you some very, simple language. Do not make this complicated legally. And it works. So this is the recipe. This is the method that I use to break down and set goals to reach $100,000 in commissions. 12 projects at 250 kW apiece means you need a large number of prospects. So it's no joke. You have to be serious about this. And that's where you have to learn how to use tools, and you have to be a good networker, and you have to be active in the community, right? There's just no buts about it. This is a big job to become a lead magnet, and that's what you have to see yourself as. And of course, every tool at your disposal, including social media, but doing online events, speaking at events. I try to speak at trade events, like Aurora does a conference I was a speaker at this year, and that is just great for my brand as a solar professional. It really changes your presence and your recognition in the industry. You have to understand how to size, design, and quickly price projects. Maintain that SOQ. Use tools like Energy Toolbase. Use a letter of intent. And be curious. There's nothing like curiosity. And your customer will notice if you really are interested in them. As I said at the beginning, I am on a mission to help you speed your journey and go further faster. And one of the tools that I've developed now is an online course called Selling and Developing Commercial Solar, the Ultimate Blueprint to $100,000 in commissions. And this was a passion project of mine in 2022, and it's a super valuable resource. It's got 5.5 hours of online training covering things like what are the considerations for the facility owner, soup to nuts, site assessment, site visit. I go through that in great detail. What is it that you need to identify about a facility to know how to price it? And then do the sizing and pricing, design, sizing, and permitting, and interconnection to the grid. Each of these, you can call them modules, is worth several $100s individually. And So, I've got 10 modules, 5.5 hours, covering all of the nuances of commercial solar projects, financial modeling, presenting the opportunity, answering common questions from decision makers. Things like, is there a fire hazard? What do we do at the end of life? I go into, I think, 20 questions that you're going to get from your customers. And tonight I'm offering a free coaching session, a 90-minute coaching session. This is worth $750. I'm going to give you an ebook with a roadmap to 100K, and I'm offering a $96 discount on the online course, all $956 just tonight. So a total value of $5,950 from this online course. And the question, I guess, really for you to think about is, do you want the freedom and status that comes with selling large projects? Do you want access to my network of industry contacts? Do you want my assistance in closing your first multi-megawatt project? Would you benefit from a one-on-one coaching session and unlimited email access to me during the course? And do you want to fast track your career in commercial solar sales? That is kind of the bottom line here. So if you answered yes to any of those questions, this course is available to you today only for $499. And by buying the course, you are going to become part of my tribe, and I am going to accelerate your career in commercial solar like none other. And you do have to use a code to get the discount. The code is webinar 101. There's the URL, bit.ly/solarcourse checkout. There's a QR code at the end of the presentation here, so don't sweat it. You can use your phone to find that, check out. And here's what some of my students who have taken this course say, like Neil here, who's a solar developer in Hawaii, wonderful gentleman, used to work for Generac, which is now a battery company, well known in the residential generator space. Now they're into batteries. Now he's a solar developer. Tim's course is a great breakdown of the C&I sales and development process that I will likely be using. I will likely be referencing frequently as a project developer. People like Brad Herrick in Chicago. I've known Brad's boss at Illumin Solar for many years. And shout out to Zach Witt, the owner of Illumin Solar. Tim's course on selling and developing commercial solar projects is a magnificent resource to gain the knowledge you need to develop top quality solar projects and close them. And then one of my newest students, Molly McDonough, who's a recent grad, and she's now a clean energy associate at a company called Ecogy in Rhode Island. She says, this course went through all the details on selling and developing solar while being really accessible. It was so great to pick up right where you left off in the recorded videos. The instructor, Tim, was super knowledgeable and very thorough. He also shared some of his personal experience and explained how to apply industry standards to each of his points. Definitely learned a lot. Thank you so much, Molly. Looking forward to seeing your career blossom in the coming years. Thank you so much for being here. I will now do some Q&A, and just snap that QR code and go to the checkout to get the $96 off the course today only. Actually, for the next 20 minutes. And then we're going to turn that coupon off. But normally the course is $595. Today only, you're going to get it for $499. And with that, let's see what's in the Q&A. Yeah, I apologize about the chat being disabled. That's news to me that I have to tweak that setting, so I'll certainly look into that for future webinars. Thank you, Sylvia, for being here, getting into solar from commercial financing. Real estate professionals have a leg up and are great assets. Solar is real estate in so many ways. So, Greg from DC, thank you for being here. New to the whole solar industry. Yes, you are one of my people. I can help you become knowledgeable and proficient in commercial solar. Yoram says, dual axis trackers are a unique technology. They are very unique. And I think dual axis has a great future. We will see more of them as that technology matures. Joel from Glen Ellen. We have an Illinois guy. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And Joel is a NABCEP associate. I highly recommend NABCEP certification. It is the gold standard in the solar industry. I am a PV technical sales certified professional. You definitely want to pursue that and or a PVIP, the installation professional. So, Gus from Colorado Springs says he's been doing exterior sales for 20 years, including roofing, and he sees residential solar growing, and he's interested in making a change. So welcome to the solar industry, Gus. You've come to the right place, and Colorado is a fantastic market. A lot of solar going on. You can't see commercial solar. You see residential solar. Commercial rooftops tend to be taller. Many of them are 30 feet off the ground, and so you just can't tell that it's happening. But commercial solar is happening in Colorado, as is community solar, agrivoltaics, and some utility scale. And it's home of NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory there in Golden, Colorado, just outside of Denver. So Colorado is a fantastic market and, of course, a lovely place. Yorm is saying he has a tracker with 99.6 uptime. Well, maybe you work for a manufacturer. I'm not sure. You're not saying, Yorm, but look forward to learning more about your work. Just to reiterate, the checkout code is case sensitive, bit.ly/solar course checkout with all caps on solar, caps on SCC, solar course checkout. Santino says, I'm very interested but can't accept offer today, but I do want to follow up future opportunities. Yeah, I'll be doing this periodically, so stay in touch. Look for my LinkedIn post about the webinar and follow me on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. You've all received a link to that as well via email. Join the group. I'm building a tribe. And for those of you who take the paid course, we're going to have a special group as well. And you will have not only the free 90-minute coaching session, but you'll have unlimited access to me via email and chat during your taking the course. And then we're going to build this group of solar professionals. We've got the big Facebook group, which will be kind of a mishmash of people at all levels. And then we'll have an exclusive group for the paid members as well. So look forward to staying in touch. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. Santino says, who would build solar systems in New Jersey or Arkansas? Well, gosh, if you don't know about Solar Power World, check out Solar Power World. They publish an annual list of installers and developers. It's called Top Contractors. Solar Power World Top Contractors is a great resource. Tito also asks if there's a solar panel shortage in the U.S. I would say generally no. It ebbs and flows, but you can get solar panels. Anonymous asks, is there a best entry point for new solar professionals? Taking this course would be a great starting point. It is relatively encyclopedic. It covers a lot of ground. Pursue NABCEP Associates. You can get books on that, but schedule a time with me. Take the course, and you get a free 90-minute session, and I'll give you a data dump on how to get started in the solar industry. Alton from Toronto says he is a lead gen expert looking to continue his growth in the industry, and that's great. I welcome industry professionals as long as you're respectful and not just trying to sell your services, but trying to add value to the community. If you're there to support the community and add value, you are welcome. How to move forward with commercial financing. Commercial financing is deep water. So schedule a call with me. That's beyond the scope of tonight's webinar. And, commercial banks are used to doing this. If they're regional or super regional or national, they're going to finance solar. And then there's some specialty companies, out there for, whether it's a lease, a loan, or a PPA. I partner with EDP Renewables on solar PPAs. So that's deep water. And I think I hit all the questions. So with that, we went just a tad over our 1 hour. I want to thank you all for being here. Really appreciate this opportunity. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Have a great night, everyone.